everybody. This is the Customer and the Service. I'm John Lemazny, and with me is...
Sean Petrowski. How are you doing, John?
Hey, Sean. How are you?
Great.
So this week we're going to talk about two topics that Sean and I think are fairly important in customer service and things that have affected us directly, either with people interacting with us or us interacting with people. And let's start with the topic that Sean brought to the table, which is the idea of recognizance. If you've ever been in a situation where, as a service provider, you run into somebody and they say, "Do you remember me?" It can be an interesting situation, and hopefully you do remember that person, especially if it's only been a short time. But Sean wants to tell us a bit about an interaction that he's had, or a few interactions that he's had like this, and what the outcome was.
Yeah, so over the past couple of weeks, I've received a few emails from former students of mine, students that I've taught in these particular cases in less than 12 months. So students that were in my spring class, students that were in my fall class. So we're not really talking that much time. My classes are typically small in size. They've been those two classes were starting with 25 and ending, the course usually with 18 or 17, which is kind of normal. You get some dropouts, and so it's pretty easy for me to know my class, know the kids' names. I'm pretty bad initially at remembering people's names in class, and that's typically because participation in the course is really key for me. So the kids that participate the most in my class, I remember immediately almost, and the kids that don't or are more quiet or introverted, I have a really hard time remembering their names. But by the end of the semester, I'm able to go down the list and say who's who. So I've gotten a couple emails from students seeking advice, career advice, because they're graduating, you know what I mean? They have a few months, they don't know what to do. And every email that I've gotten has started with, "I'm not sure if you remember me, but ... So we're not talking about summer courses here. We're talking about regular, traditional fall and spring semester courses that run the gamut of September, October, November, and February, March, April. Now, again, there's some bleed over into December and May, but it's so little it's insignificant. So we're talking about 3 months, 90 days with a group of students. And we're talking less than a year. And if I'm teaching a group of students and they think I'm the type of person that would remember them in less than a year, I don't know. What kind of message am I sending?
Well, what type of person is that? In other words, do you feel like it's a classification issue, or do you feel like this should be a skill that anybody can possess and should possess if they're in service?
I don't know if I really understand the question. You'd be a little more...
Yeah, so you said, I don't know if they think that I'm that type of person who, I guess, wouldn't care so much to even remember your name.
Right.
Remember who you are, not even necessarily your name. It sounds like they were saying, I don't know if you remember me, I was, whatever. But I get this too, because when I teach, not so much with classes, although I have recently got an email from a former student and they started the email that way. It may just be whatever, a thing. But very often I'll do classes over at Princeton Public Library where I may only meet the person for one class.
Right.
And you never know if you're ever going to see them again, although I have been lucky to get some repeat attendance. But I often get that prefix to the conversation. "I'm not sure if you remember me." And usually, sometimes they'll go the route of giving me context. They'll say, "Oh, I was in one of your classes at Princeton Public Library." And with all the tools we were talking about last week, like clothes, sometimes it even gives me a picture to give some indication of who the person is, because they have been they've put up a photo.
Are you there? You keep dropping out. Hello. Oh boy. Hopefully you come back. I'm hoping and praying you come back. Hello. There you are.
Hey, well, yeah, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Oh, good. So, sorry about that.
It's okay.
Yeah, so having your students, or these connections that you have, sometimes very quick connections, come back to you and say, "You remember who I am?" You know, that's like an opportunity for you, I think.
Mm-hmm.
A good chance for you to hopefully show how important their interaction was with you. And I know, you know, when I go into a restaurant that I go into all the time, part of the reason that I may go there is because they recognize me there. They may not give me any special treatment, but it's nice to be known where you go.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. And in fact, we talked about going to Winberry's and having, Joe, the bartender there, knowing us. The other bar staff know me there because I go there for lunch very frequently with my lunch colleagues. So that's part of the reason we do go there. You know, they know us. You know, we don't have to ask them to split the check up. They know what we like to drink when we have lunch. So it's good. It's good to feel known. It's good to know, have a service provider know your preferences, your likes, your dislikes. You know, you feel like you build a good rapport or a relationship, if you will. And I think that yields for a better service experience as a customer, and then also as a service provider, it makes things a lot easier. And so, I absolutely, as someone who receives service all the time, love that familiarity with the people that I get service from. And when I run a class, I'm a little unconventional in the way that I run my class. I build up a rapport with nearly everyone in that class. And I've had students who purposely shut down the whole semester, and that's just probably their nature, and that's fine. But I make a point to get to know each student as well as I possibly can. You know what I mean? And the fact that the students are still worried that I wouldn't remember them, it gives me moments of pause. Like makes you think, double second guess what it is that you're doing. And I don't know. Maybe it is a thing. Like, maybe it's just kind of like they don't know what else to say or how to start off an email with someone that they haven't spoken to in a while. I don't know, but it's just, I think it was a weird coincidence that I've gotten about 3 or 4 emails in the past month or two, and they've all started that way from different people. So
I wanted to talk about the idea that I took a elective in my master's program for education, and we studied this incredible book that I refer to all the time. It's called How College Affects Students, and what it is a series of longitudinal studies about the way that the college experience affects students in their life, in their ongoing life. And it doesn't necessarily have to do just with academics. It also looks at things like athletics, leadership qualities, outcomes, salary, social status, social networks, and a whole bunch of incredibly useful statistics about the effects of college and various colleges. In other words, these studies prove that a community college experience is not detrimental to the success of a student. It's neutral, which is makes me happy. I knew this because I went to community college, but my community college experience was perhaps my best collegiate experience. It gave me the most support and really renewed my faith in education, so much so that I ended up in education as a career. At any rate, one of the things in this book that I thought was extremely interesting was the statistic that said that there was a marked difference between students who were engaged above and beyond and students who were just normally engaged, and the difference being the classroom. If you take a student and you invite them in your home as a faculty member, or you invite them out to dinner as a faculty member, in order to have an interpersonal communication with them that you would have with a friend, it dramatically changed the outcomes for the student across the study. And the more that happened, the more likely it was for leadership qualities to emerge, successful outcomes for the student, not only as a student, but as a person, because they began to see, while interacting with this person of leadership in the class in a personal way, how those things worked. They were able to have conversations and ask questions and interact with them on a different level than is possible in the classroom, and is probably nearly impossible over distance learning. I mean, there are many similarities between an in-class session and an out-of-class or a distance learning session, but getting closer with the teacher was not one of the things that comes to mind. And so that sort of echoes what we're saying here in service. You know, if we think about teaching as service, as we often do, trying to interact with a person on a personal level. If you have that opportunity, many of my clients I end up going to coffee with, and it's a not for charge, so that we can have conversations that may have to do with the work that we do, but often don't. And that interaction so greatly impacts the success of the remainder of our work, because we're always able to go back to a conversation that we had, or we're always able to go back to, you know, that quiet sunny afternoon that we spent in the square outside of Princeton Public Library, or whatever it might be. Certainly that has that effect on your relationship with me. Yes, we do this work together, and we are an organization that produces things, but we have a stronger relationship because we've spent time at each other's in each other's personal space. You know, we've broken bread. So definitely, if you have the opportunity on any level to do that with one of your clients or your customers, by all means, do it. So I think this idea of recognizance relates to that too. You know, recognizance, and also what I'll reuse from that educational study, the idea of engagement or customer engagement is so important for success. And that can even come down to just an over-the-counter conversation. You know, I don't need to necessarily know how your kids are, but if it was clear to me as a customer that you do not give a shit about me, it's going to show. And so often it does. And those are the restaurants I don't go back to. Those are the electronic stores I don't go back to. Those are the service providers that I go and find an alternative. Because that personal interaction, that short conversation, is the difference between me regarding you as completely interchangeable and somebody who I care enough about to ask how their day was.
I'm thinking back to my time in college, and this is kind of outside of what we're talking about specifically, but with group projects, you know, people always dread working on group projects in college or high school or whatever.
That's a generalization, but I'll give it to you.
My experience as an undergraduate with group projects was extremely positive. And part of it was due to the fact that one thing that I almost always did as a group, and it wasn't really necessarily something that was spearheaded by me, but we would often socialize outside of our group work. So one of my good friends by the name of Frank Congelos was someone that was in some classes that I had, some CIS classes with me. And we worked on a group project together in our systems analysis and design class, and we had 2 other team members. And we would often get together in my dorm room, work on the project, and then afterwards we would go and socialize at the pub on campus. So it was an opportunity for us to kind of unplug, not talk about our work, and get to know each other. And, you know, I was friends with Frank before that class, but it was like that time where we grew very close as friends. And we also grew close with another member of our team, a girl by the name of Melanie. She would hang out with us a lot. We got to know her very well. You know, it wasn't just like we're going to get together, work on this project, and then go our separate ways. We like actually developed a friendship. You know what I mean? And it was cool, you know. And that wasn't the only time that happened. I can think of like a few other projects where I made friends. You know what I mean? And because they basically all went down the same way, where we would work on the project and then go and socialize. And so that to me was pretty amazing. And when I got to grad school, my experience with group projects was completely different. You know, I did not have really positive group project experiences. And the one thing that was different was there was no socialization that happened. We would try. I remember a mutual friend of ours, Jessica Franco, was in a class with me, and we worked on a project together with a group of people. And Jessica was kind of the same mindset of I was, of like, you know, we're going to be working on this project for a long period of time, and, you know, we should kind of get to know one another. So we would often together try to spearhead kind of like a group hangout, like either at the pub after class or whatever. And 9 times out of 10, you know, it would end up just being like Jessica and I and this guy Pete, and the 3 of us got to know each other really well. And then the other 4 members of our team really didn't have an interest, and therefore the group dynamic kind of suffered, and then working on the project became very difficult. So, you know, again, it's not really a service provider-customer relationship, but again, it's that recognizance that transcends, you know, not just service roles, but, you know, human decency roles.
So here's the thing, though, and I've had this discussion and sometimes argument. Of course, I have my master's in organizational leadership, and I had a much more broad view of what constituted an organization. In my point of view, a family is an organization. In my point of view, any interaction with a client is potentially an organization. We are organizing together. We are gathering ideas and actions and products. Very often the product is whatever it is that I'm doing for them, but very often it's a collaborative process. And there is leadership involved, and there is collaboration involved. And so your group projects are no different. You needed to do something, you came together, and the extent to which you came together, the social layer that you added, strengthened the outcomes, potentially, strengthened the outcomes of your project. And I know that you and I have talked about when you were a student in for your MBA, or maybe it was CBA, but you used to go out with the faculty members to like dinners at the end of the year.
Yeah, it was actually, that wasn't when I was in school. It was afterwards. As when I became an alumni, I would get invited to different dinners that were with current students and current faculty, and they would invite, you know, some alumni to come. So that was that, and, you know, absolutely built a very positive relationship with me and current students and, existing faculty that maybe I didn't get to know so well. But, I do that now. Dr. Amadio, who's been a mentor of mine for the past 13 years, we've started a tradition over a year ago now. At the end of every semester, we get together for a lunch, and we talk about, the past semester, as teaching colleagues. And another mentor of mine, Dr. Lauren Eder, another mentor of mine for the past 13 years, we've been getting lunch together for, I don't know, the past 4 years or so, before I even started teaching, just to kind of talk about, IT. So we have a little bit, even though we're now colleagues as teachers, we do talk about that a little bit, but that kind of social relationship was more built on talking about IT and talking about trends and things that are going on in the IT career space. So that's absolutely brought us to another level, both with Dr. Amadio and Dr. Eder, from a teacher-student relationship to a teacher mentor, a student mentor to colleagues. And I think that a big part of that has to do with the socializing that we did outside of the classroom.
And it brings me to the idea of people saying, how do you get that position, or how did you get that opportunity? And the answer that's often given sort of off the cuff and almost with a little bit of disdain is, well, it's who you know. It's which is true in a sense very often, but sometimes it's not who you know, but who you choose to know and who you choose to show value to. And I try in every day of my life to show value to people, because you never know. And I've had those experiences too. I as an undergrad in the fine arts, I remember being asked to go to First Friday in Philadelphia, where they have the galleries open in the evening all year round. And we would go and we would have dinner, and it would be a faculty member and like 8 or 10 students. We just hopped in the van, we went down to Philly and had a great time and came home and went home. But the interactions were not that significant while they were going on. It was just a night out. But looking back on it, it was so significant from what's referred to in the theory as being part of like an in team, as opposed to part of the outer circle, being part of the inner circle, and had such an impact on me. So, anything else you want to talk about with that topic?
I just thinking like, what kind of is going on in higher ed, specifically kind of the teacher-student relationship. I feel like there's been a lot of scrutiny lately, not particularly at Rider, but outside of Rider, about inappropriate relationships or inappropriate interactions. That I feel like maybe some professors are afraid to kind of engage their students that way, which is unfortunate. And I had a professor that too, Dr. Mark Wallace, who was my political science professor of mine, and he would come out to the pub with us every once in a while as a class. He would find out that we were going to go out, and we'd ask him to come along, and as some of us would ask our professors that would typically say no, he was one of the few that would come out, and we got to know him real well, and I consider him a friend to this day because of that. And he would say all the time to us about how, like, there were a lot of professors that wouldn't do that type of thing because they were afraid of how it would be looked upon by other faculty. So
absolutely,
it's a shame, especially if there's research like you've talked about tonight that shows that there's a true benefit, to interacting with students. It's not like we're, trying to find new wives or something. We're just trying to get to know our students better so that we can become better more comfortable in the classroom so that we can have better interactions, more meaningful interactions. If I know that, a student has aspirations to reach a particular career goal, or, I find out that a student is into a particular hobby that I'm into, I can kind of customize my lectures or my interactions with those students to further engage them by saying, hey, listen, I'm into these things too, or, if you want to reach this goal, you need to follow this path that I'm talking about throughout the semester. So, I hope that changes. I don't know. I feel like we've kind of stepped backwards in that sense. I hear stories about what college campuses were like in the 60s and the 70s, and it seemed like that was definitely a free time where faculty and students did freely mix and freely converse and exchange ideas outside of the classroom. And I feel like over time that has slowly eroded away, which is unfortunate, but I guess it is a product of the times that we live in.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that those boundaries exist as a result of many tales of that situation gone wrong. And there are certainly ways that can go wrong. If let's say that let's say that Mark, and we'll move away from that example and just say that instructor X had a drinking problem and decided to go to the pub with their class and get plastered, and then that's a major issue, But with most of the examples that they gave in the study, they were more simple affairs, going out to faculty homes, having dinner with them.
Which I feel like I feel like that's worse. Looking at that example, I'd much rather go to some on-campus location.
Some on-campus location other than the pub, perhaps.
Maybe, but still, I would never in a million years invite a student to my home. Never. No, under any circumstance, regardless of gender, I would not do that for many, many, many reasons.
I'm going to try now to convince you to consider letting students into your home, because that's really what the study was about, was this idea of allowing them into your inner circle.
Yeah. Spend the night on your couch.
If I had a couch.
Yeah, right.
So shall we move on to our other topic?
Let's do so.
Okay. So I'm going to anonymize this situation so as to not embarrass myself or anybody else. So I was recently asked to go to a meeting in which I was going to discuss my experience with an organization where I found some success, and explain to an organization that's trying to do the same thing as this group. Well, it has to do with technology education. How that works, what the topics are, what will bring people in. And this is a relatively new organization, not one that I was very familiar with. And I was really excited about it. And I got the sense that they were really excited about the meeting too. So I got there, and we went in, and it's a relatively new facility, beautiful facility. And we started to get down to the details of what has worked in my situation with teaching about technology in various organizations, but this one particular organization, so that they could maybe emulate some of that and maybe even get me in to talk about some topics. The problem in this particular case was that the organization who was interviewing me was pretty strongly focused on a certain set of applications, mostly programmatic applications, programming platforms, and very proprietary programming platforms such as C# and iOS.
.NET, that type of stuff.
Which I don't have a lot of experience in because it's not been my focus. My focus is being an advocate for end users. And so I talk 6 or 10 times during the year about Google Apps for education or Google Apps for business, or how to use Inkscape, or what Linux is or whatever. Very low level introductions to technologies that are unfamiliar to most. I really love that sweet spot too, because that lack of familiarity can go a mile deep if we allow it to. If I allow questions, for example, in my classes, which I always do. And it can also stay very shallow if we have a group of people who, and these are not typically technologists who are coming to my classes, they're typically end users. The audience that this particular group is looking to connect with is technologists and then some. So you and I would be their audience potentially.
Okay.
And they are looking to reach out. So we had an immediate sort of difference of understanding of what I had been teaching and what was bringing people in and what they were looking for and what I was able to do. The problem is that during the conversation, when this was discovered, the tone, the hospitality, and the general humanity of the person who I was interacting with disappeared. And what I had started to suggest was that I was going to connect with some of my other friends and colleagues who did this sort of training and would be happy to come in and fill those gaps. Because another thing that I'm trying to do right now is to be a hub rather than a node, which I think you and I have talked about. But I guess I mentioned open source one too many times or something, and it just became evident that there was a bias in the conversation against the things that I hold dear. And so this is, I guess, just a little reminder, because what I've done since then is go around to the people who I was going to connect with to see if they wanted to be represented in this conversation, to instead go to this group and say, have you ever worked with this group? And if the person said yes, I'd say, did you have a negative experience?
You there? I think I'd lost you again. Oh no.
Because I
Oh, welcome back. You want to say that again?
uh,
I'm losing you. You're saying
and instead of asking,
Let's just wait for you to catch up. You there? John? Uh, where did you go? Are you there? Hello? Oh no. I think you're really gone now. Oh, hello.
Hey. Oh, so it looks like you've been broadcasting this whole time.
Yeah, so I'll edit it. So why don't you just go back and start over? About the last thing that you talked about was you were starting to connect with people in your um, that you were going to reach out to be speakers for this organization, and you're trying to find out what type of experiences they had, and you were asking them it was a positive or negative, and that's where I lost you.
Okay. I'll make it quick.
No, don't worry about it. Just say it again. I thought it was very good. Don't cut yourself short.
Well, yeah, so instead of doing what I would typically do and what I had intended to do, which was to befriend this organization and get them good people as a uh, way of making them aware and getting them excited about it, I ended up sort of saying I did not have a great experience about this. With one particular person, I actually brought them back the next day just to investigate the facility and walked into the facility, which is open 24 hours, and just gave them a little walk around. I wasn't intending for them to sit down and have coffee or anything, and I was treated as though I had broached protocol. And my feeling was, if you don't want people to just walk in here, then lock the door. Because I wasn't intending on using any of your services. I was not intending on. I mean, I was treated really badly the second day, like ridiculously so. And so this is just a little indicator that even if you feel like somebody does not have value to you, you often do not know what value they possibly have for you. You don't know what they're going to do or not do on your behalf or against you. And this should be obvious. It should be basic humanity. But in fact, obviously it's not. As service providers, you have to treat everybody like they are your next pot of gold. Not even because there's any money involved, but because you don't know the ways that they might help you. And worse yet, you don't know how many people they know and are now saying, don't work with this group because they're not kind. And so this is just sort of a short and long to say, even if somebody doesn't benefit you directly or you don't think that they benefit you directly, that's no reason to treat them like anything less. Have you ever had this experience, Sean?
I have. When I was looking for a new career before I started at Princeton, I had the privilege of working with some recruiters. And I ran into this pretty frequently where a recruiter would reach out to me about a particular position, and we would speak on the phone or meet face to face, and I would learn more about the position, and they would learn more about me, and maybe I wasn't the right fit for the job, maybe it was a job I wasn't interested in, and I typically treat those type of situations like, maybe this isn't if I'm working with someone like that, maybe this job that you contacted me about isn't necessarily the job I want, but let's build a relationship. Maybe there's something I can do for you, and then you'll remember me, and then when something else comes along, you'll consider me, for something else. Right. I'm always trying to build relationships in those situations. Because you don't know, maybe I know someone that's looking for, a particular line of work that they're trying to hire.
Never know.
Never know. So I've actually experienced that myself, where the recruiters have, figured out I'm not the right fit for the job or whatever, didn't like me, and immediately just boom, like, oh, okay, and sometimes it's been hostile, very uncomfortable sometimes. I had one time where a recruiter called me. I knew somebody that worked at a company. They referred me to the recruiter for a particular job that I was interested in, I was a good fit for. The recruiter called me up basically saying, listen, I've looked at your resume. I've spoken to so-and-so. We want you to work here at this organization. You know, to the point where we were already talking salary. And he said, you know, what are you looking for salary-wise? And, you know, anytime I interview with anybody, I do my homework on salary. You know, I know what people in that industry are making on average, people with my level of experience are making. I do my homework. And I quoted a salary to this guy that I thought was fair, considering my level of experience and also considering, you know, jumping from higher education to a corporate environment. You know, salaries change that way as well, too. And the guy laughed at me. Laughed, legitimately. I said, you must be joking, right? I said, no, sir. No, I'm not joking at all. That's what I think I should be making. And if you want me to be a part of this organization, that's what I'm looking for. And, you know, he was like, oh, I'm sorry. I really thought you were making a joke. Unfortunately, you know, we're not going to be able to meet those requirements. And I was like, immediately, I was just like, all right, I got to get off the phone with this guy. But, you know, that I didn't cut off. I didn't shut down. You know, I kept it cordial, polite, professional. You know, we talked for a few minutes after that situation. You know, and he told me, like, listen, you know, this isn't, you know, we don't pay that high for this type of job. And, you know, and he said, I'll keep you in mind for anything else that opens up. And I could have said, no, I don't want to work with you, or I don't want to do business with you. I could have said that, but, you know, I don't know. So I just said, yeah, okay, great. You know, I appreciate you speaking to me today, taking time out, and it was great having this conversation, and that was it, you know. Never heard from the guy again, which is fine, but at the end of the day, I didn't do anything stupid to jeopardize my reputation in this guy's eyes, but he did a lot of damage in my eyes, and that's for damn sure.
Yeah. And you know, there are plenty of situations with the other services that we talk about all the time, like restaurants or going to, and it is very often the way that you're treated. You know, it doesn't need to be negative. It can often be very, very positive.
It's unfortunate that people are so, you know, oblivious to the fact of, you know, like, you never know if you're going to run into that person again. You know what I mean? It's crazy to me that people aren't cognizant of that. And, you know, there's been situations in my professional life where people have, you know, burned their bridge with me, and then we've run into each other again. And then they're in a situation where they're looking to get something from me, and it's like, no way, you know? So, I mean, I've been in that respect, I've been fortunate enough to be the one holding the cards in those type of scenarios. But, you know, again, I don't ever conduct myself in a way like you described, because I fear that, not fear, but, you know, it's basic human decency. You don't know what's going to happen one day.
You never know. And,
Nope.
you know, anybody can be you know, I can think of people who I had very good reason to treat badly. And you try to keep a smile on your face. You try to show restraint and to be disciplined about your reaction, because you never know. You never know.
Yeah, you don't ask them to leave a meeting.
Nope. Because
No.
you might see them on the street in Princeton one day.
Or you might be co-hosting a podcast with them one day.
Oh, it took so long for him to do that recording.
I
Anyway,
know. I know it did.
All right, Sean. Well, I don't have anything else to say. You have anything else to say?
I just wanted to say that I was at WrestleMania on Sunday at Giant Stadium, and I was in a luxury box 5 doors down from the governor of New Jersey, and I experienced some pretty ridiculous service. Very high-end food, high-end luxury service. Something that few people have had the privilege, I'm sure. Luckily, I didn't have to pay for any of it, but pretty amazing experience nonetheless. And I just wanted to share that and say that when you're at that level of sport, I guess of that level of entertainment, in that level of luxury, you do get what you pay for.
And how did you know that the governor of New Jersey was 5 doors down?
Because I saw him.
Ah, did he enter the ring?
No, he did not. He was on the stage at one point with this the Special Olympics, but that was as close as he got to the ring.
Crazy.
Yes.
Well, congratulations on your fantastic service, and congratulations on your point of view, which I always enjoy hearing. And I will talk to you again next week, probably at our normal time.
Yes, looking forward to it. I'll see you on Monday.
All right, thanks, Sean. Bye.
Bye-bye.